Want to achieve network marketing success? Then you're in the right company. Hello, and welcome to Leave Nothing to Chance, hosted by networking marketing giant, John Solleder. Learn everything you need to know about the network marketing space from somebody who's actually done it. Join us every week for front row seats as we feature some of the finest and most successful personalities in network marketing. Leave nothing to chance. Join us now.
Hey, a several-time guest here on Leaving Nothing to Chance, my good friend, Mr. Joe Garcia, top distributor in his company, industry icon, speaks around the world, trains people around the world, not only in his company, but a lot of people in other companies that follow Joe because he's so good at what he does. And Joe and I were having breakfast last week in Toronto, and he shared some things with me about some game-changing self-development ideologies and things that can be done in your business. So, Joe, I just want to turn the call over to you and welcome, first of all. Thank you so much for your time. It's so good to see you last week. I'm glad the sun's still out in Toronto, by the way.
Yes. And John, thank you for paying for breakfast. I can't remember the last time I didn't pay for breakfast.
Well, it's because you weren't out with your downline.
Or the family. Right?
Exactly. But anyway, Joe, welcome. And you know, what you were sharing with me was so compelling. And I said right then, man, we got to do a show on this. So no time like the present, even though our audience won't see this till late April with all the shows I've already got in the bin. But I just thought what you were talking about was so insightful. So I'm going to be quiet and just turn it to you and let you get started. And I'll jump in when I think it's relevant.
Are you sure you want me to do this? Because I'll go on for like 10 hours here. You just have to stop me, you know?
Don't worry, I'll stop you.
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about sharing this because it is a game changer for our business and a game changer for life, John. And, you know, let's face it, with us as leaders, and the leaders are going to be listening to this podcast, the number one thing that we have to do on our daily lives is attract leaders and build leadership. You have to have a system in place that builds leadership. Okay. And that's really difficult to do. And I'm always, you know, since I got started in the industry 30 years ago, I'm always looking for that hack, you know, that faster, better, quicker way to success. How can I get someone from point A to point B and help them overcome their programming and get them to success? You know, and this is why we know, you know as well as I do, people know what to do. There is so much information now on what to do compared to when we got started. How to contact and invite, how to set up meetings, you know, how to do a presentation, how to follow up, you know, leadership training. There's so much training out there. The issue is not training. So when one of my team members come to me and tell Joe, I need to do a training for my team in this, I need to do a training, I go, it's not the training that's going to be the magic bullet in your business, because as you know, there's thousands and there's so much information out there that it's people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. Correct?
Exactly.
And it's the most frustrating thing. They know what to do, but they don't go and do what they know. So over the years, you know, I've used things because I know if I can help someone double their self-worth, they're going to double their income. So how do we do that? Okay, so we do that with personal development. You know, so when I get someone started, I get them on reading Science of Getting Rich, for example. You know, I know that I need to get into their mind to overcome everything that they've had in their past and be consistent, helping them be consistent in that area. Falling in love with your dream is another major tool. If you don't have a destination in life and you're not in love with your dream, it's not going to happen. You're more than likely going to be out of the business a month or 2 months down the road, even tomorrow, after you get the first rejection. So those are tools. But let me give you a great example, analogy. So the hardware, if you look at the first generation iPad, if I've got one of those, and I want to upload one of the new apps in the hardware on the iPad, it's not going to work. So the software is not compatible with the hardware. For most people in our business that get started, the success software that we give them are tools that can work long term. For the most part, it won't work with most people because the hardware is so messed up in the areas of money, success, what I can do for what we can do personally, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 3 ways to change in life, John. The first way is through an outcome. So you and I get you started. And my focus is helping you get to the first rank. Okay? Because typically most compensation plans, most recognition plans, it's all about getting people to the first rank. If you get people to the first rank, you're successful in doing that, you're going to move up in rank, everybody else moves up in rank, and you're going to be able to get to the top. So your goal this month is to get to the first rank. So that's an outcome. So you've set a goal. At the end of the month, I'm going to get to the first rank. Here's the challenge with this. A couple of years ago, some researchers, and we've known it, everyone that's listening to it knows this. We all know there's a learning curve in our industry in self-help and business development, but there's also a quitting curve. And these researchers have found that day 19 is when people typically quit. So starting New Year's resolution, and by January 19th, I used to be in the gym business in my early 20s before I got started in this industry. My last job I ever had. And I knew by January 25th, there was nobody in the gym anymore. Like the gym was full up until that point, but then you really saw the reality of the quitting curve. So there is a quitting curve, day 19. And anyone that's been in our industry long enough recognizes that. There is a quitting curve with everything, particularly with success. So, second way, so outcome can be effective, but for only a small percentage of people, provided they are doing the personal development, provided they fall in love with their dream. But the second way is process. So what process means is at the end of the month, I'm going to help you become first rank. But in order to do that, you're going to do 2 new people a day. You're going to talk to 2 new people a day about the business. So process comes with an activity plan. So you're going to have better results doing that. But again, the quitting curve always comes into play for most people. They get distracted, life happens. You know, we all know people set goals, have a process behind it, an action plan, and something happens in their life. And it totally takes them off track. Oh, I got to remember about that goal the next month. Life always happens. Typically with those people, they don't have a dream. They're not working on themselves every day. So it's easy to get distracted. So process is much more effective than outcome. But again, it's not the number one way that you can change yourself. The third way, which I found for decades now, is if I can change one's identity, John, I can change their life. And that comes down to our self-worth. Here's the thing. So for those that haven't read my book, The Greatest Year Ever, or Your Best Year Ever, you can go onto my website, yjoegarcia.com. It's a free download. You know, it's closing in $1 million now. I don't even ask for an email. I'm just paying it forward. So in there, I have a strategy of manifesting your best year. So one of them is affirmations. Affirmations have worked incredibly for myself. Like it's been a game changer for myself. But for most people, I'm not going to tell most people that it's not going to work, but for most people, it's not going to work. Why? It's their hardware. Immediately when they say, let's say, for example, their dream is a house. I'm so happy and grateful to purchase this home. Thank you, God. Immediately in the back of their mind is their negative mind, their programming that says, John, you've never made more than $2,000 a month. How can you get a house? You've always rented. That cancels out the affirmation, and the affirmation is never going to work. So how do we overcome the programming, the self-limited beliefs? So one of the beliefs that we have in our industry is if we can just get people to talk to one new person a day. It's easy to do, right, John? As Jim Rohn says, but it's easy not to do.
Yep.
What stops people from doing one person a day or two people a day? Hey, John, I'm building a business in your area, and I thought of you. You know, business people, I'm involved in an incredible e-commerce global business model, and business people like you are doubling their income within the next 2 years. I don't know if this is for you. Would you be open to taking a look? Okay. Great approach. Easy to do. It bypasses the sales filter. Why don't people do that? It's because of their limited beliefs. Another example, I have a gentleman in Colombia that we're launching in Colombia. And I don't speak Spanish, but where there's a will, there's a way. I'm building globally. I can use technology to communicate with people. I get this pro involved in the business. So he tells me that none of his people in his previous company will listen to him anymore because he's been to a number of cryptos, et cetera, et cetera. So he has this limited belief. He has absolutely no friends left. So he won't even approach them. Okay, so I talked about this limited belief. It's not our job to decide for people. Our job is just to share it with as much enthusiasm and let them decide if this is for them or not, or even if they want to take a look. So he says, no, Joe, I'm not going to even approach. So there was one guy in his list that was an A player, gone on to be a successful entrepreneur in other industries. And he wouldn't approach this gentleman, okay, because of that limited belief. So I said, well, why don't you just introduce me to him? He wouldn't even do that. So we're doing a pre-launch event in Bogota. This gentleman comes into he comes to the event, and that gentleman on his list came into the meeting, invited by someone else.
Wow.
Good lesson because of his limited beliefs. So this programming that we have stops people from taking action, from believing in themselves. So if we can change someone's identity, we can change their life. So changing identity through personal development, through falling in love with your dream, those tools really do work over time. But it takes time depending on the person's background, depending on their programming, how emotional it is, and the emotional attachments do they have to their past failures, and et cetera, et cetera. So I have been experimenting for years, and how can I get to that part of their brain that will hack into that brain and change instantly. And I've been experimenting with it in numerous ways because I know it really works because I've tested it myself. So before I get into that, I want to share with everybody why this is a game changer. And I'm going to give everyone some studies. So when you present a new idea with people, what you want to do is come with proof, right, John?
Mm-hmm.
That this really works. You know, why it works. Because most people in the back of the mind, well, this will never work for me. This is too simple. Okay, so the first study was done in 1969. It's a very actually famous study. It's called the Pygmalion effect. You can Google it. It was done in the US. And they took this teacher and they had these 3 students coming to her class, these researchers, and told the teacher that these 3 students were in the top 1% of the country. They were brilliant. So they told the teacher not to tell anybody in the class, not to tell any of the parents, treat them like they're like every other day students. Those students were not top 1% in the country. They weren't brilliant. They were below average and average students. Okay. 6 months later, after the school year finished, the researchers came back. And you know that those students ranked in the top 1% of the country. How is that possible? The teacher, because of the belief that she had in those students, it transferred into them and they were able to change their identity and what they can accomplish. Change your identity, you change your life. So this is why, this is a very important lesson for parents, for coaches, and all backgrounds, is when you have really legitimate belief with people. So with my people around the globe, my leaders, I'm always telling them I believe in them, that you're going to have greatness here in the near future. I'm constantly telling them all the time this one statement, because I understand the Pygmalion effect. If I can transfer my belief into them, slowly but surely, they're going to change their identity. So that's what happened with those students. A few years ago, they did also another, I've got hundreds of these examples, John, but another study where they took 1,000 men, split them up in two, 500 in groups of 500. And they were all average looking men, all kinds of different ages. In the first group of 500 men, they told those men that they were spraying a specific cologne, the most expensive cologne ever made, on them, and it drove women crazy. Absolutely drove them crazy. You would be immediately attractive to anyone. Okay? And the other 500 men, they didn't do anything. So they had these men parade into a room. And introduce themselves to the camera. On the other side of the camera, in another room, there were thousands of women. All they had to do is rate them attractive or not attractive. You know that the first group of 500 men, over 96% of the women ranked them as attractive. What happened? When the researchers told them about this cologne that they were spraying on, they believed it. It changed their identity. So as they were walking into the room, they felt different about themselves. They were more confident, and the women picked it up. Identity changes lives. And we've all experienced this. For example, I grew up, and my dad used to tell me, because when I was a teenager, we were buying suits for weddings and things like that. And he would pay for them, of course. And he would say, Joe, $100 suit is the same as a $2,000 suit. All you're paying for is the brand name. So I grew up believing in this statement. But when I bought my first $2,000 suit, John, it was all over. My identity changed. I walked differently. I was more confident. My body posture was different. I was more enthusiastic. I just felt different. What changed there? My identity changed. If you notice here today, people always ask me, Joe, why are you always standing up in trainings on Zoom? And I tell them, because when I stand up, I have more energy. I'm more confident. My identity becomes different. And voila, I get the results because of it. So when you change your identity, you change your life. And the third example will blow you away. And it's when I first saw this, I just, oh my God, how is this possible? But again, it's a big reason why when you change your identity, even your body follows. So the third study was, they did 4 years ago, just before COVID, they did a research on the most unhealthy professions in Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Top 10. Number 3 were doctors. Number 4 on the list were nurses. Number 1 on the list was hotel maids. They had the most obesity and the most health challenges. So they got together 1,000 hotel maids in these 3 countries, and the researchers sat down with these hotel maids because they couldn't understand, it wasn't logical that these women were in such poor health, because they ranked in the top 1% of exercise. They had over 10,000 steps a day, okay, which is significant in exercise. They were moving mattresses and heavy furniture. They were walking up and down stairs. Okay, so these researchers went to these hotel mates and told them, look, here are the statistics of health. Look what your job is giving you every day. 6 months later, they brought these hotel mates back to test them. 96% of them, John, lost weight and health challenges went away. What changed? It was their identity. They saw their job now as in the top 1 percentile of exercise, and their bodies followed through.
Interesting.
So we have all these examples in life. If we go back in our life, anyone that's had any kind of success, you know, professional athletes, when you were going to compete, you know, and I hope you had a coach that understood this. If I could get John in the zone, so what does the zone mean? Change his identity, remove all his preconceived notions, all of his programming, because it's always there, but install a software into him that he can just perform like that. Right?
Exactly. And you know, you're bringing up so many different things here, touching so many different points, Joe. This is amazing. But, you know, I think about, you know, that's a good example right there. You know, you don't tell a kid when he's going to get on the mat or on the ice or on the court or the field or whatever, "Now, you're going to lose." You tell a kid that, they will lose, especially a little kid. Right? Tell, "Hey, man, you're a winner. And whether you win or not, I'm going to be proud of you, but you do the very best that you can do." And it's amazing how kids will rise to that level of performance, right? And then, you know, so many other intangibles and tangibles, you know, do they get dedicated to the sport that they're in and all of that. But it's amazing. And it's so funny you say that. I just had lunch with a buddy of mine who was on the Iranian national wrestling team, who's been a friend of mine for many years here. We used to train together. And his name's Yusuf. And we were talking about that at lunch. He's got a 13-year-old daughter. I've got, you know, 3 kids, as you know. We were saying, like with my son was not a good student. He wasn't a bad student. He was just kind of, if I'm interested, I'll do my homework. If I'm not, I won't. First semester of college, he basically dropped out. All of a sudden, he finds coding. He goes to SMU, one of the premier schools in the world, not just the United States, goes there for a coding course, falls in love with it, graduates at the top of his class, and now he's a full stack coder. And I said to him last week, I said, "Fred, what changed?" He said, "Oh, the fact that the teacher believed I could do it." The teacher said, right, exactly. Day one, the teacher said, "Oh, you've done all of this already," because he's been, you know, tooling around with our industry, as you know, and had a little bit of success with some things he does online. And he told the teacher that. And he's in there, by the way, with graduate students, you know, people in their 40s. He's 19. And that's a case in point. Another point, Maxwell Maltz wrote a book called Cyber Cybernetics that you've probably read.
Correct.
Worked with people who had plastic surgery. And they came out, many of them, and they said, you know, they had a crooked nose or they had a bad eyebrow or something. And they came out and this plastic surgeon fixed whatever it is. And they said, "I don't see any difference." Now, their spouse may have said, "Oh my God, you look great." Their kids may have said, "You look great." Their neighbor may have said, "Wow, you look terrific." They didn't see it until they changed that negative self-image to saying, "Okay, this thing that maybe people were laughing at me or, you know, we're looking the other way or whatever," they had to get in that comfort zone. And I think that to your point,
that's the identity.
Exactly. The identity.
You change your identity, and you can do that very quickly. But we have to understand that those programs. So when I got started in the industry, I, you know, even a better example, I got 2 examples personally. But when I got started in the industry, my upline would tell me, "Joe, the person with the pen is going to make the most amount of money. You got to get up on stage. You got to present in front of big groups." You know, I was doing really well, and there was a meeting here in the East End of Toronto that was having about 250 people a week, which was one I was attending every week, bringing guests. So the leader that was running that meeting called me up one day and said, "Joe, I would love you to do a presentation." And sheepishly, I said, "Yes." John, I had so much fear after I hung up. I was literally sick. And I didn't know where that was coming from. Like, why was I scared like this, the most fear I've ever felt in my life, to stand up in front of a room of my peers. So the day before, I'm sweating buckets. I must have lost 20 pounds that weeks. Like that's it took over my life. And I'm going back and forth. I'm going to cancel out, I can't do this. I'm going to make a fool of myself. And I'm in my mid-20s, and the other side of me said, Joe, you got to do it. You got to break through. You got to break through. So the morning, John, the fear was so much. I was so sick. I made myself sick to the point where I called the leader up, and his name was Bill Dietrich. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I lied to him. I said, well, I can't do it. I'm really sick. Meanwhile, for 26 weeks in a row, I was going to that meeting, and he knew that I was lying, that, for whatever reason. And I thought it was the worst day of my life, still today, because I succumbed to fear. And I promised myself that I would never allow that to happen again, no matter what. So the thing is I never overcame that fear of speaking in front of people. Where did it come from? So what was happening is there was a program back in my mind, which I completely forgot, that when I was in high school, I was to do a class presentation, and I froze to the point where I couldn't do it. And my whole student class mates laughed at me, and I was just bullied for the next few weeks because of that. I went around through the whole school, and I completely forgot about that situation, but my subconscious mind never did. So that helped me. I said, wow, I got to overcome. I got to change my identity. And I wish I knew this tool to do that at that time, but I got to change my identity. I'm going to do it. I just plowed through. My dream was so vivid. Fall in love with your dream. It overcame any fear. So eventually that Joe that was in high school sometimes comes out. I was a few years ago, I was doing a meeting in front of 25,000 people. I'm up on stage, huge stadium, lights on me, translator beside me. And for a brief moment, just a second, that Joe in high school showed up. And I too really anchor myself, and the fear. So that programming is always there. Always. So second situation is on my dad's side, everyone has diabetes, like everybody, John, from him to his brother to his two sisters that had diabetes, his parents, aunts and uncles, all the way down the line. So from time I was born, all I can remember is being fed that I was eventually going to get diabetes. You got to watch what you eat. Don't eat too much sugar. Anytime you feel sick, well, maybe you have diabetes, and let's get yourself tested. This was just pounded into my subconscious. But over the years, I assumed that I got rid of it over the years. But I've been anal in getting my blood tests every year, getting my physicals, because I want to be proactive. So as you know, I work out every day. I try to eat healthy. I live a very balanced life in many aspects. But in June, I wasn't able to do my blood test during COVID. So I went to my first blood test since COVID, and my doctor called me 2 days later, and it wasn't. When a doctor's office calls after you do tests, it's not good news.
Never.
So the secretary makes an appointment for me to get back in to see him. I immediately go online to see my numbers, and I was shocked. Like, I was literally shocked. My numbers were pointing in the wrong direction, like crazy. I've never seen it before in my life. So it concerned me. And immediately at that moment, I recognized, John, that identity of diabetes was still playing within me. Okay, so I made up my mind. I'm going to get retested. I went to see him. He says, Joe, you trend this way, there's medication in your future. And he's not a doctor who wants to put medication, especially with diabetes and stuff. So I determined I'm going to beat this in 90 days. That was my goal. So I set an outcome. I set a process, which this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do an extra 10 minutes of cardio and 20 more reps. I just wanted to change a little bit of my workout. Okay. But the third thing I did, which I'm going to talk to you about in a few minutes, how I hacked into my hardware to change the momentum. Just by doing that in 90 days, I went back on my blood tests, and it was like a 25-year-old professional athlete. Like, it was incredible, the transformation in 90 days. So what happens? I was able to change a little bit of my activity. Well, the big game changer is I changed the identity. It's like that computer virus that goes in. So a good example, the other day, here in Toronto, the Sick Kids Hospital, they developed a new technology. This is brilliant, where kids that cannot hear, okay, absolutely deaf, okay, so they put in this specific virus, okay, this virus into the hardware behind the eardrum. They took the eardrum out, put this virus in that triggers the synapses of the ear and making these kids hear again for the first time in their life.
Wow.
It's the same thing. When you hack your brain, you're able to overcome the programming and the limited beliefs that continue to go on. So here's the number one, as leaders, for anyone that's built a sizable group in the industry, you know what happens is you get people that struggle. You get leaders that plateau, and they say, John, I don't understand. I'm doing all the right things, but my team's not working. My sales have dropped 50%. You know, I'm getting concerned now. What can I do? Can you help me? Here's the thing, John, is there's a law called the law of resonance. It's more powerful than the law of attraction. And one thing we all have to understand with these universal laws that God's created is you can't change them. They're imprinted into the DNA fabric of this universe. So the law of resonance, really, when you Google the definition, really, I'm going to paraphrase right now, is how you see the world will respond back to you, or your universe respond to it. So for example, if you feel that your wife is lazy, okay, what's going to happen is over the next several weeks, the universe is going to continue to give you more things to show you that she is lazy, and you're going to be convinced of it. Okay, so the universe, so it's kind of like a lot of the political stuff in the US, even here in Canada and globally, where people are calling themselves left or right. Okay, so when you immediately put a label on something, you limit your beliefs. So what happens is the universe will always give you how you see the world. So you're never able to grow outside of those paradigms. The law of resonance. In network marketing, in our building our teams, people can prospect well, they can build teams very fast, they can sell a lot of product, but there are lots of people, huge percentage in this industry of leaders, after 2 years, their teams fall apart. It's because of their limited beliefs in so many areas, like confrontation. So if you have a confrontation with one of your team members, happens all the time. Would you rather be right or rich? So when someone's yelling at me or is very strong in their opinions in something, and they want to chew me out or sending me a long email, I'm always asking myself, do I want to be right or do I want to be rich? And they can just hammer me left and right, and I'm not going to create enough drama where it takes them out of the business. I'm just going to look for solutions. It's because it's how they see themselves in the world. So another great example, a few weeks ago, one of my leaders, she came to me, she said, Joe, I need your opinion. I'm thinking of divorcing my husband. And my mistake was, why? I thought they were a great couple and everything else. And there's no way. And then she asked, what do you think? There's no way I'm ever going to break up a marriage or a family, because commitment and loyalty are two of my top 5 values. You know, I honor them. And so when I asked her why, she came up with hundreds of reasons, one by one by one by one. And then after she was finished, I go, here's what I'd like you to do. Because she was convinced. So the world was showing her constantly, the universe, all those things, that reasons why she should divorce him, right? All I want you to do in the next 30 days is find one good thing about him every single day while you fell in love with him. Just one good thing, and start adding them on a list. 30 days later, she came back to me and she said, Joe, you saved my marriage. You changed my life. Because I understood the process of changing one's identity. All I did was change her identity and how she saw her husband. She was so focused on him not cleaning dishes, not emptying the dishwasher, not supporting her when she needed it in the business, and all these things, and not growing enough, and those kind of things, right? So when you ask the right questions, John, to the universe, to this perfect universe that God created, the universe will always start searching for the right answers for you. But if you ask the wrong question, like, why isn't my team growing? You're going to get more of that. Why can't I sell more product? You're going to get more of that. Why can't I recruit more people? You're going to get more of that. Why is my team lazy? You're going to get more of that. Why did my team only have 5 people in the event? You're going to get more of that. The way you see the world is how the world's going to respond. So when you know how to answer the right questions, and I'm going to show you a technique, in asking those right questions at the right time, you're going to be able to hack into your hardware and change your identity in these areas. Does it make sense?
It makes total sense. And, when you mention belief, Joe, I'd like you to talk about this for a minute. I think A Man's Search for Meaning, great book by Viktor Frankl, right? About the Holocaust and the people who survived, who had that belief system, I'm going to see my kids again, or I'm going to see my mother again, or I'm going to see my dog again. Whether they did or didn't, they were the ones that per capita survived that horror versus the ones who just went in and said,
Correct.
okay, kill me now, a type of thing, right? And I'm paraphrasing it. Maybe that's not the right thing to do, but if we take the worst of humanity as an example like that, all we're doing is building a business.
Yeah.
Right. So how does somebody get through all the stuff you just mentioned, all those negatives, right? And we've all been there. I've asked myself those questions. You've asked yourself those questions. It's like, you go to an event.
Stop asking those questions.
Yeah. So I'm
going to give you some questions that are game changer.
Go ahead.
What you do. So one last thing, and I'm going to go to, for those of you who are Christians or even non-Christians, it's inarguably Jesus Christ was the most impactful person that's lived on this planet. Muhammad, based on the numbers, may be the second. Okay. So after 2,000 years. So Matthew 7:7, I'm paraphrasing now. He says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find it. Knock on the door and the door will be open to you. Okay. He didn't say, make sure you're going to not say negative questions. Because he understood you ask the wrong questions, the universe is going to give you more of that because of our belief systems.
Exactly.
So when you ask the right questions constantly, Anthony Robbins in his book, Unlimited Power, was my first personal development book ever. He has a whole chapter in there on asking the right questions. Okay. In his movie on Netflix called I'm Not Your Guru, the show on that Netflix, it shows him, and I said, yes. It shows him in front of the mirror. And this is how he gets himself up a day. He says, why is a massive abundance coming down on me for my dreams, goals, and intentions? He's asking that question. That's how he's getting him in that state. So what I've done is I've been experimenting this for a few years. And this is really, frankly, things I've trained on the higher leadership, because it's important to understand the awareness. That's why I give people all this examples and research of identity and how that plays in our life. Okay, our self-worth, our income in life will never outgrow our self-worth. And how we change our self-worth is by changing our identity in so many areas. Like those men with the perfume, they were changed immediately. You know? So what I do is in the mornings, I do this like on ritual, and I take my voice on my iPhone, and I have these questions put into my iPhone for 2 minutes, put on the earphones, and what I do is I get myself in a meditative state. So I turn on some meditating music just to get myself calm, and I count from 10 down to 1. For those of you who meditate or are good at that, you can get yourself in that meditative voice, and then turn on the music. Turn on the on your audio, and then these questions, repeat those questions to yourself all the time. Just before you fall asleep, because just before you fall asleep, you're going into that theta level. That theta level is where your mind is most programmable. Just before you fall asleep, now you start asking yourself those questions. And what happens is your mind during that whole night is working on with the universe giving you what you want. So this is why when you even use it in prayer, becomes very powerful. Because most people in prayer are asking God the wrong questions. You know, why am I poor? Why am I struggling? Why do I always have too much month at the end of the money? You know, and sure enough, they're going to consistently get more of that on a constant basis. So you ask the right questions, great things. So for money, why am I so great at making, keeping, and multiplying money? For dreams and goals, why do my dreams and goals come to me with ease and speed? Why am I so great at attracting and building leaders in my organization every day and helping my team do this same thing? What's better, that or why is it my team not growing?
Love it. Love it.
Okay, for fitness, and this is what I said to overcome my hacking of the diabetes. Why am I so fit, muscular, and healthy like a professional athlete? And the body responded. Okay, so the difference between that and I am so happy and grateful I purchased a home. When it's not, you're basically creating a statement, which your programming immediately cancels out on it. So what I find, guys, is when you do this, along with really determining what you want in life, your destination. So what's the first thing you do, John, when you go to a place, when you were in Toronto and you needed to go to that hotel? You went to the wrong hotel, but so did I. You put in the coordinates in the GPS and it, you know, and it takes you there.
Exactly.
Without it, we're going to end up in the wrong destination usually. Or in the old days, we would use a map and read maps. Okay, remember those days? Read those maps. This is how we get that there. Our lives are built the same way. That's why so many people continue to struggle in life. You know, they're struggling. They're paddling upstream. And you know what happens when you paddle upstream? You never get. What you want to do is paddle downstream where all the momentum is. So hacking in this area has been a game changer for me and a lot of the team members that I've helped in this area. And again, it's just logical. We know for everyone that we get started in the business that's interested in building a business, it's changing their identity. Every coach should know that. I got to change that identity. You know, Kobe Bryant, you know how he did it? Because he had the hunger, the desire. You know how he changed his identity to become the best he could be? Is he figured that he would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do his workouts. And then everybody else, his peers, were getting up at 8. So he figured he had 3 hours on them shooting baskets. And those 3 hours over time created the belief that he was better, he would become better than everybody else. That's how he changed his identity.
I think it's somebody else when you say, I think it's Dan Gable, the 1972 Olympic champion and kind of the icon of the sport of wrestling in the United States and even around the world. And that's what he used to do, was he trained 7 hours a day to prepare for the Olympics. And he would not quit a workout until he could psychologically see his opponent from Russia, because he figured he'd wrestle a Russian in the finals, which he did. When he could see that guy in the shower, putting his stuff on to go home, he wouldn't get off the exercise bike. He'd push it harder. And whether it was Bryant, whether it was Gable, was any of the greats in anything, business, the arts, athletics, whatever you want to look at, that's the differential, I think, between the people who really make it and the people who get to day 19, like you talked about earlier, and just say,
Great.
yeah, this didn't work out right. I think of that great scene in Rocky, was it Rocky 1 or Rocky 1, round 14, right? David Goggins talks about this a lot. I love this analogy, right? You watch that scene, and folks, if you don't know what I'm talking about, pull it up on your from Google or YouTube. It's the scene where Carl Weathers is just hitting, Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, just killing him, knocks him down 3 or 4 times. And all of a sudden you look at Stallone, and he's beaten and he's beat up and he's wanting to quit. And all of a sudden he gets up, and you can see in Carl Weathers' eyes, right? The guy who played Apollo Creed, this guy's insane. It's going to take a lot to beat him. And that's kind of how we got to get ourselves in our industry is, hey, something you say that I love, Joe, you love your dream. Why you've been successful. You've done everything else to become successful, but more than anything else, there is nothing that's going to stop Joe Garcia from the dream that Joe Garcia had many years ago about the life that you wanted to create for yourself, your wife, and your kids. Nothing was going to stop you. You got a lot of things that have been in the way, but you've overcome them. Now, how have you done that?
My dream, and I was asking myself the right questions. So most people would say, like, I'm very positive. Like, I don't accept defeat in anything. Commitment and loyalty is two of my strongest values in life. I exhibit it in everything I do. Like commitment, I used to remember as a kid that I believed that any fist fight I got involved, I would win, no matter how big the guy was, because he would never outlast me, no matter how many times I got hit. That was a belief that I had, right? So, so what happens when you're following over your dream and you work on yourself every day, not every other day, not once a week, not twice a week, every day becomes a habit of yours. It becomes part of your lifestyle. And just by doing that, you're going to grow your mind. You're going to grow your beliefs. The other thing that's really happened to me is, as I've grown globally and visited globally, my religious beliefs have changed. My spiritual part of myself has grown, being exposed to so many different cultures. And one of the questions that I ask constantly, what are some of the beliefs that I have that are holding me back? Powerful. From attaining what you want in life. And again, like one of them, I'd rather be rich than win. That's a belief. I'd rather be rich than winner. Winning is not important in an argument. It's seeing past that forest, seeing past that jungle to get to your destination. And the biggest thing that we all have to overcome is those deep programmings. And the ones that are most emotional, like anything surrounding around finances, John, and relationships, those are the two areas that we have the most difficult with because of the deep programming in those areas.
How important, and you referenced this earlier, right, with your diabetes situation, for example, how important is self-positive talk?
Okay, so the negative talk is all the programming. And it's just recognizing. So how I work, it's almost impossible to manage your thoughts. I think researchers have found that we think about 80,000 thoughts a day or whatever it is, right? So it's better to manage your feelings, because when you're off track, you're thinking about everything that you don't want. If you're feeling bad, you're thinking about everything that you don't want. So it's a feeling of joy. You know, when you're joy, you're thinking about everything that you do want. So if you learn how to manage your feelings, which I've gotten really good at over the years, no matter what situation, is I'm always that calming situation. You know, when my dad passed away a few months ago, you know, I knew I needed to be there for my family. I just focused on gratitude. So that helped me with the mourning process, the day of the funeral, and all those things that I had to do for my mother, right? I just focused on the gratitude rather than all the crying and all the drama around that, right? So by handling your emotions as a leader, it's really important, because you've seen it in our business. The leaders that can't handle their emotions and working with their teams, they just create major issues, and you can destroy a team literally overnight.
Overnight. We've both seen it. So Joe, in wrapping up, one thing people can change, listen to this podcast today, what would it be?
Oh, you know, now I'm having like deja vu here many times over. One thing, you got to fall in love with your dream. You got to be, that's the secret to life. Because then these hacks that I've just given you, the stuff that the software that I've given you will work on your hardware because you really want it. And you'll overcome the 90-day quitting curve. So my recommendation to everybody, try this hack for 30 days. Make sure you do that every single day, exactly the way I've shown you. If you want the notes to this, John, I'll send it to you so people can download it.
Yep.
And so just try it for 30 days, every day, twice a day. Be disciplined. Overcome that 19th day and start writing down little things that are showing up in your life, because this will help you in the belief that things are happening.
We'll do it.
It's like kind of like when you get on your product, John. You got an incredible product, and people are so sick, they have all these ailments, and now they start to feel good, and they completely forget how they felt when they were, you know, their knees were hurting, their ankles were hurting, you know, they had a hard time waking up.
Exactly.
So that's why, you know, just a reminder, this is how I feel now. And then 5-10 days later, this is how I feel. It's just documentation.
Well, Joe, this has been amazing as always. What we'll do is, send me those notes and we'll put those in the show notes, folks. So when you listen to the show, go to Leaving Nothing to Chance, and everything that Joe and I have said here is written as well. And we'll attach those notes on the bottom so you can just download them. And Joe, amazing as always. Tell them again where to get that booklet, because I read that when we first met a few years ago. It's amazing. Just tell them once again, just so it's fresh in their mind.
It's whyjoegarcia.com. So whyjoegarcia.com.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. I know you're traveling a great deal here the next little time. Where are you going? I know Peru.
Yeah, John, just a reminder. I wanted to share that this just came up to me right now on the feeling of identity. When you go in your pool, you know, I bet you'll recruit more people doing that pool than in front of the stage, because you change your identity.
Exactly.
Because you know you have a belief 100% that that's helping you with your health. So that's just a personal observation about you.
Well, thank you. And it's right. When I started to go into cold water now 3 years ago, February, it did. It was a game changer. It was a game changer in my inflammation, but it was mentally a game changer, because when you do that early in the day, the rest of the day's easy.
Yes.
What else am I going to do but go in 45, 41, 39-degree water first thing in the morning? What else that day is going to be that challenging? Not a whole lot, hopefully. So it's a mental game changer.
You change your identity, and you built it up so strong that it's helped you in so many other areas, and your body followed.
Absolutely.
So the key part is, if you didn't change your identity during that process, you would not get the benefits.
No, not at all.
It's kind of like with people that were really fearful of COVID, and they ended up getting COVID because of their identity. Whereas I don't even know if I don't think I got sick during that time or even had the illness. Even if I had, chances are I did, it did not do anything in my body because of my identity, of my health. So it's important to understand this part of ourselves, and it is a game changer. If you take this podcast today and re-listen to it over and over again, and just develop the belief of identity change, you can do it very quickly, and great things will happen in your life.
Great. Well, Joe, as always, my friend, I learned so much listening to you. You were a great mentor, a great teacher, a great leader, and really a thought leader for this day and age. And folks, listen to the stuff that Joe just shared with you. He just shared in less than an hour wisdom that's not only going to change your business is really important, but your life is 100 times more important than your business. Your business is part of your life, not the other way around. Everything he just talked about with belief and with changing identity, these are game changers. These are game changers with your spouse, with your children, with your grandchildren, with your neighbors, your community. Listen to what he shared, re-listen to his podcast, download it, have your families listen to it, because it's a life changer as well as a business changer.
And leave nothing to chance.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Leave Nothing to Chance. If you want to know more about what it takes to succeed in the network marketing space, join us again next week for another amazing episode. For additional resources and to connect with John Solleder, visit leavingnothingtochance.com. Don't forget to leave a review, and we'll see you next time.